Agent Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow and subscribe on both Twitch and YouTube. It really helps us out a great deal. But Anthony, what are we doing here today?
Hey, we have an awesome show for you today. You know, we have an awesome panel here. We're talking all things Cypher Creator Program, and we have, you know, 5 great designers here. We have Christopher Negelein of Ganza Gaming, Megan Tolentino of Peculiar Books, Johnathan Wright of Werx Games, Andrew Marlowe of Marlowe House, and Dean. No, I'm just playing. So, welcome our esteemed guests. You know, before we even start this discussion, and before I'll even let you guys talk about you know, all the great products you have, I think let me break down the Cypher Creator Program for our viewers that may not know exactly what it is. So, you know, it makes sense for me to actually do it this way. So, you know, Monica Games and Drive Thru RPG, they created the Cypher Creator Program in order to allow Cypher System fans and third-party publishers to create content for the Cypher System. But, you know, some and not all of his wonderful settings, they allow Gods of the Fall and Predation, but not others. Content creators have created many wonderful projects, you know, ranging from original adventures, settings, character descriptions, foci, and other options. You have ciphers and artifacts, plot hooks, creatures, NPCs, and other creative things being used, you know, with the Cypher rule set. This program allows designers and newcomers alike to try to design within the Cypher System rule set. Plus, you know, Monica Games provides them with a ton of free resources like artwork, logos, templates, you know, to help them create the best products they can. The publishers are allowed to set the price at, you know, of their products at any price they choose, including free if they desire. At the end of the day, it's a great way for designers and fans alike to create and have more access to Cypher System content. So that is the Cypher Creator Program in a nutshell. So let's go through our panel now, and you know, please tell us who you are and what products you have on the Cypher Creator Program. I'll start off with Chris because he'll probably be talking for the longest, and you know, he's the cult of Ganza Gaming. So Chris, tell us a little bit about what you have on the Cypher Creator Program.
Well, I'm known as Christopher Robin Negelein, as well as Ganza Gaming. I have 23 or more PDFs for community content, Cypher plus TinyD6 plus some 5e stuff. In addition to being a contributing writer for the Esper Genesis Sci-Fi 5e game, which I think some people here have played and enjoyed at one time or another. Probably my biggest product that people know me from as Ganza Gaming for Cypher is Mortal Fantasy, which is a 40-page ambitious little PDF because it tries to do 2 things. It tries to take the Gods of the Fall setting where you play demigods in Cypher, which is not that hard because Cypher, but it pulls it to a more traditional fantasy setting just a little bit, just for people who may want to use it but are intimidated by doing the demigod thing. And speaking of, you know, being a little intimidated with new rules, that's its other goal, is having a GM that can offer players, you know, traditional fantasy archetypes like Paladin and Ranger and Rogue and things like that, so they can feel more comfortable as they get adjusted to a new system. I threw some other things in there like how to do more 0 to hero because, as you know, a Cypher, you start off pretty competently. And like I said, I have like 23 products, so I'm going to wrap it up now or I'll be here all night, and I don't want anybody to really strangle me right now. So I'm good.
I just want to say Mortal Fantasy is fantastic. And when it first came out, I'm going to go to Megan next because she had a product that I use hand in hand with Mortal Fantasy all the time, you know, before Cypher was actually doing fantasy products, and both those 2 PDFs were godsend. So let's go to Megan Tolentino. Could you tell us what you have on the Cypher Creator Program?
Yeah, so I have a book called Fantasy Ancestries, which you can actually get in a bundle with Mortal Fantasy if you want to have a bunch of fantasy resources. it's a book that I put together to create flavors for different heritages or ancestries. So you can have a dwarf flavor. Sorry, my cat's gonna insist on being here. You can have a dwarf flavor or an elf flavor, tiefling, all those different traditional fantasy lineages. But as a flavor, you get to get new abilities as your character advances, and it allows a lot of flexibility in what the abilities your character gets from their ancestry. So that's the main thing I have up. I have like one Call of Cthulhu adventure, but that's not creator or Cypher creator system. But that's my big thing. And I'm part of Peculiar Books, which has a couple other small Cypher creator products as well.
And tell Asha we said hello.
Yeah.
Dean, our man Alpha Dean, can you tell us what you have on the Cypher Creator Program?
We've got a few products up there myself. Speaking of that bundle that Megan already made mention of, I actually have a product in there as well with Chris's Mortal Fantasy, Malvando's Mythic Modificum, which is basically bringing a more traditional spell type, magic abilities to Cypher system, so you can cast spells and so on and so forth. Actually, the biggest selling product I made was called Heroic Mixtape 1, which is all about superheroes. I made that way back before Claim the Sky or even Unmasked came out. Actually, I made it to go in tandem to go with Unmasked, which is, my love affair with superheroes. I also have a horror setting that came out because it was inspired by not Claim the Sky, Stay Alive. And that brings like werewolves and shapeshifters, brings the idea of playing monster hunters, basically a lot of stuff that was inspired by like TV shows that I watched, like Supernatural and what was the one, whatever it was, a bunch of stuff. Basically, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, couldn't get it out. But you can play all those type of characters. I put stuff in there for that kind of stuff, so new powers, so on and so forth. Other than that, I'm always working on something. Me and Chris are working with Here Be Dragons with the upcoming Diamond Throne. I'm drawing blanks tonight, guys. My brain is just not firing. I see it in my mind's eye, but can't get it out.
You can sit on the other side of the table.
Yeah, it's like
I almost jumped in there.
It's rough. It's rough being on the other side of the table. I'm not used to this. But at any rate, that's the basic products I got going on right now. That's what's happening. Anthony's going to ask some great questions, so we're going to take it from there.
Next, we'll move on to Johnathan Wright from Werx Games. Could you let us know what you have on the Cypher Creator Program?
The other one I've got is a rules supplement for my Mecha versus Kaiju game. It was originally published for Fate, and I started playing Cypher and just fell in love with the system because, you guys know why. I adapted it to a rules setting, and one of the things was creating archetypes, anime-inspired archetypes for character creation using flavors and abilities, which was really, it was really surprised at how easy that was. The genre, I've got different kinds of genre rules set up using those setups for a variety of games based on different kinds of anime or manga or movies, depending on kind of what speed you want to go with. Really focused on scale. How do you have human-sized people and kaiju on the same battlefield at the same time? And so, making use of power shifts as kind of like the main mechanic for that, and then deconstructing the monster rules to create a point buy system for creating giant monsters and giant robots. That might not be the flavor that some people feel for Cypher. I've always been a tinkerer, so I love getting in there and just like, coming up with fun combinations. But even if you're not, I mean, you can just pick like one or two of these powers and use those as like sort of the the wave motion gun of that particular beastie, and then do the rest with, just a target number and, and some mods. So it's loose enough to accommodate the people that really want to just fly by the seat of their pants. But those that really want to sort of get in and tinker around with stuff, it's got a lot of fiddly bits that they can play around with.
It's a fantastic supplement. When we had it the first time, we got to really mess around with it. I absolutely love it. It is well worth a checkout. Last but not least, our brother from another mother, Andrew Marlowe of Marlowe House. What do you have in store to for our audience to tell us what products you have?
Well, I've been freelancing for a while, so I've got products. Sorry, I just had oral surgery, and so it's a little rough talking. I've got products from several different companies across other game lines, but in Cypher, I recently jumped in and I've got the Blood and Chrome. Currently, there are 3 supplements in Blood and Chrome, which are a cyberpunk, technopunk character builder set, types, foci, and descriptors. And then I've also got a character sheet bundle, which includes all the character sheets that were legal to update from Monty Cook Games, all the characters from Ganza Gaming's Mortal Fantasy, is a partnership with Chris to go in and do that, and then all the character types from Blood and Chrome.
That is absolutely awesome. And before I let Al go into the first question, I just want to state, if you go on Drive Thru RPG right now, go to Cypher Creator Program, all 5 of these esteemed panelists are in the top 20 of currently best-selling products on Drive Thru RPG in the Cypher Creator Program. So we have an absolutely fantastic panel, and hopefully by the end of this, we're all going to learn something about the program and whether or not it's actually worth it. So Al, take us away with the first question.
So yeah, I want to address something real fast that's happening in the chat. So apparently, the link shortener I used is trash and the links are broken. So I will definitely get the actual links for these products. They're all on Drive Thru RPG though. So if you just, again, like Anthony said, search the Cypher Creator Program on Drive Thru RPG, you'll definitely find all this stuff. But again, I will have direct links available momentarily, hopefully. But either way, let's dive right in here with the questions. So nice simple one here. How did you guys get started designing for the Cypher Creator Program? And again, anybody could chime in first. We don't really we'll have a loose little conversation here. But yeah, how did you guys get started designing for it?
Nobody wants to be first?
I'll be first.
Go for it.
There you go.
So, as I said, I've been doing freelance work for a lot of different companies, usually Pathfinder, and I have wanted to do Cypher content since pretty much the playtest of Numenera rolled out. I ran a demo during the first Gen Con that Numenera was out that I had originally thought I would try to publish at some point, and it just never materialized. I kept getting other projects that were paid gigs from publishers, and the idea of shelling out the money for a license for Numenera, it just never really hit at the right time. And then we started working on a couple of projects here at Marlowe House that we wanted to definitely do. And I've been looking at doing it as a license project so that we could do a Kickstarter or something else. And instead, we went ahead and opted to use a creator program, broke the project into pieces, and we're releasing them as more manageable pieces, and that's Blood and Chrome.
Nice.
I think that's really for, like, you know, smaller publishers like me. Definitely breaking it into pieces like that is really key.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I teach creative writing to my English students, so I always encourage them to, like, just write as much as you can, and you know, and then you know, be satisfied with like the piece that you create. You know, if it's a great, perfect little piece, you know, be happy with that. And I think it's one of the keys of, like, being happy as a publisher is, you know, not biting off more than you can chew.
Right. And I totally agree. And part of that too is the fact that I could churn out all the words necessary for a larger project. But I ultimately, what I would like to do is bring in some of my other creative friends, be able to pay them reasonable amounts, and to be able to get art and other elements and resources to make it, you know, more of what the goal end is. And I would eventually, I eventually see us taking all the little pieces and compiling them all together and doing a bigger release with that in mind.
Chris?
How I got started was, it was a little bit of a curious route. I was doing a podcast with some friends, kind of a geek lifestyle thing. And we interviewed Shauna Germain, the co-founder of Mighty Cook Games, as a guest. I think she was promoting the Kickstarter for No Thank You Evil at the time. And then I wanted to do, you know, what we now call live play or actual play. I forget which one it is. And I did about 5 episodes of that with Cypher because of Shauna. And I felt very comfortable with Cypher. You know, other games, I didn't feel so much comfortable with the hacking, but Cypher kind of begged to do it. And I don't mean beg to do it in that I didn't get what I wanted. I could just customize as much as I wanted or didn't want. And at that point, I put out some things. And for a while, it was a point in my life where I had time to do it. So I kicked out something about every 2 months or so, mini settings, mini adventures. And then I decided to up my game, going back to Mortal Fantasy, upping my layout and design and my editing. And then I put that out. And as a side note, by the way, here's your number 4 lesson. We'll get to the other lessons later. Whatever you're doing when you're designing an RPG project, it's going to take longer than you think. Just going to have some patience. I see some heads nodding already. You're like, oh, how hard can this be? I'm just going to do it like in a couple of weeks. No problem. And it's, you know, especially when you're doing layout and design, some people love it. For me, it's a necessary evil. If I really could afford to have someone else do it for me, be thrilled. But, you know, you kind of have to, it's a little bit like comic books. You got to, when you're kind of in the mid tier, you got to do everything, all the writing and art and all that. And then that's kind of where things kind of took off for me. So I apologize if it was a little longer than you did.
No worries.
For a second, you talked about layout. Getting some basic layout skills, I definitely recommend to anybody who's going to be doing this, because when I did the Kickstarter for the Fate Mecha versus Kaiju, the thing that took the longest was the guy I hired to do layout, and he did a great job. And I basically, like, you know, stolen his layout for all my other stuff. But it took a tremendous amount of time. And if you're going to do something like that, you really need to develop skills as a project manager, which I didn't have. So it's you know, it isn't just hiring somebody else to do it. It's like being the boss of that guy for that job. And that was something I was not prepared for.
We definitely going to get involved in some of the pitfalls of designing RPGs. But we'll move in. Megan, how did you get involved in the Cypher Creator Program?
So my husband and I run a podcast called The Redacted Files, and one of the first games we ran for it was Numenera. And then we started in with The Strange because we really liked Numenera. And the game was my husband running it and me and then two brothers who live in Chicago area. And we just had a really fun time doing that. So we decided we wanted to write for Cypher together when we could. And so we made Peculiar Books, and Fantasy Ancestries was my first idea. My husband and I released a couple other adventures onto Cypher Creator. And then we've also released a book called Modern Types, which gives you more modern types to use in your game. So it was mostly the opportunity came up to write for something we really enjoyed, and we took advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys did, because you guys put out some quality work. You and Chris were probably the first people I noticed on the Cypher Creator Program that got me hooked. And then I called Chris, like I found Chris somehow, and then
I will say though, y'all already dropping gems of advice and information, and we're not even at those questions yet. So this is already an awesome conversation. Yeah, and
last but not least, we know this story, but Dean, how did you get involved in the Cypher Creator Program?
Actually, believe it or not, I don't know if you do know, but it was Chris. It's Chris's fault that I got involved with the Cypher Creator Program, because we were discussing superheroes. And I was like, oh yeah, I got lots of ideas and this, it. And he's like, well, why don't you write it up and, publish it? And I'm like, what? Publish? What are you talking about? Because I wasn't really paying attention to the Cypher Creator Program. I was just all into the game and all into what we were doing. But that's where it started. And then it was, because being a lifelong, gamer, been gaming, more than half my life now, which is crazy. And always being creative, always being a tinkerer, always being the game master, always trying to figure out how the game was going to run. This was like second nature, and Cypher's modular nature, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Cypher, I think, is designed with a creative mind and creative heart at its core, and because of that, it was just a no-brainer. And now it's like, what Chris said, the biggest thing is having time now to put out the stuff, because every time Monty Cook Games puts something out, you're like, oh, I could make another supplement, So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
This next question is kind of a loaded question, and I know everyone here is going to have a good answer for this, but is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started self-publishing? And we'll start with Dean first, because he was last to answer.
The biggest thing I wish I knew now was just how time-consuming it really is. Because the idea, what everybody said, what Chris said about 2 weeks, you literally sit down, because I'm used to writing notes. I'm used to typing stuff up real quick, for a game and fleshing it out, in the game. Whereas with this process, you can't just put a note down. You have to draw it out. You have to put the whole idea down. As many of us know, many players need everything explained. They're not going to extrapolate, and make it their own. So the biggest thing is, I just really wish I was aware of the time it was going to take me to do this, where I would have been more focused and prepared, because you really have to be in a specific mindset to sit down and do that. It might be 2 or 3 hours a day that you need to, put into this, or, so you need to schedule that time. Yep.
How about you, Megan?
Working with a group can be really hard. When I was working on Fantasy Ancestries, we were sending it back and forth between us a lot, and we're on different time zones. And so it took a lot longer to release than I thought it was going to. And the other thing I would say is I spent a lot of money paying a friend to do the cover artwork for my book, because it was the first thing I was putting out. I was very proud of it. We paid for all the art that's inside it. And I think it's probably impossible to ever get back what I paid to make it. So there's a lot of really great resources online where you get free photos, like Unsplash, that you can just credit people for and use all this art and photographs people have taken in your book without spending a lot of money. It's easy. You just have to put the work into it.
That's great advice, actually. Chris.
Well, I really wish that I really wish I had mastered learning InDesign before I even started. That's one of the reasons why, especially when I was going to take my project to the next level, it took forever because it was a learning curve in addition to doing everything else, writing and all that. I also learned that, the more organized you can be when you put everything together at the beginning, that saves you a lot of time on the back end. Because now you're having to figure out where things are and all that jazz. And I'll add to Megan's comment as well. Now with Drive Thru RPG, you can find a lot of stock art very cheap. And if you can make a few bucks from your projects, as you may know, Drive Thru RPG keeps it for 30 days before they will let you have it as cash. It used to be 60 before COVID. So while it's there, you can spend it on product. So you can buy your stock art with money from your own community concept projects, and that'll make things a lot easier for you. So it's money you still won't see. You don't know if you're going to really, pan out at the end, breaking even, but at least it's not coming out of your pocketbook.
So, Chris, are you saying I can't have my notes on beer napkins like I normally do now?
Oh, it's a different beast. But, there's a kind of a little bit of a conversation going on because some people, they say, no, I want notes that look like my GM notes, but better. I want flow charts and I want maps and I want bullet points. I don't want all this writing stuff. That means I have to actually read it. I'm running it.
Oh, man.
Andrew, if you could go on a time machine, what would you tell yourself?
Start early. Waiting till you can do it perfectly, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Start when you are ready to start. And just jump in and do it. That's what I would tell myself. We put it off for way too long. And I really wish I had found the time and slid some of my other projects down in priority and maybe not taken a couple of the jobs I did take just to get some of this stuff to happen a lot sooner.
Yeah, that's great life advice. Johnathan, last but not least.
One thing that I would have told myself was artwork is probably going to be the hardest thing to find, which it's a lot of people have mentioned, and I would have pointed myself to Fiverr a lot earlier. That's fiverr.com. There are artists all over the world who are capable of doing really good work really fast. And for very reasonable prices. And so you can, I've got a few artists that I've, worked with before, so that, they're kind of my go-tos now, but just look at the work and, find somebody who's doing a style that you like, talk with them. And, you can get, you can get, pretty good work at a pretty good price. And the other thing I would tell myself is make sure to have multiple backups. There's early some of my the original files to my early work is gone because of computer crashes and things like that. And I thought I had backed it up, and I had not. So make backups of the backups. If you've got a bank vault someplace, put a copy in there, and just don't take any chances with your stuff.
That,
One on Dropbox, one on Box, one on Google Drive.
Yep.
that would really suck.
That's like freelancer 101.
Listen,
That is that is a huge thing.
and for those of you who've never lost anything, happy for you, because the day you do, you're going to cry, and it's happened.
Yeah,
You know what that means is it's just your time now.
Right, right. I mean, literally, it's so bad. It hurts so much.
I've definitely witnessed it happen to people. I have a lot of friends who are artists because of my husband. He's an artist, so I've definitely seen them have little crises over like their computers crashing and not having proper backups. And yeah, it's definitely a sad story. So you heard it here first. Make them backups. And I want to apologize that I'm not talking too much because I'm actually considering writing something for the Cypher Creator Program, and I'm like trying to absorb all this information myself personally. And this has all been gold mine so far. I hopefully our audience feels the same way, because again, I feel like I'm learning a lot of tips and tricks here. But the last line of talking here actually leads perfectly into our next question. And did you guys, any of you, use or are using the free resources that Montica Games provides for any of your products? And if so, what? But just as a heads up for people who don't know, the Montica Games does provide free assets and whatnot for these creators to use should they not have any of their own. But yeah, did you guys have any experience with that?
Yeah. I mean, all of that stuff that they give you is great. They give you both InDesign and I forgot, was it Word? Yeah.
Word.
Yeah, InDesign and Word, just for layouts alone. That is huge. That's magnificent. But they give you a ton of artwork. And you know, they give you advice. So it's just, for me, it's great. Because I'm learning my layout stuff. I mean, I work with Chris a lot for layout. The guy is a godsend. He's been a godsend for me. And that's the other thing I tell people, as far as I talk about a good free resource, is network. You know, network with your fellow creators too. You know, because you never know who has what piece of information you need, what gem.
Has anybody else used all the content in the Cypher Creator Program?
I have 2 words for that: hell and yes, I have. You know, constantly. If you see my stuff, you'll be like, oh, yeah, he uses it. I do want to throw a thing in here because I come from a journalism background, so I'm familiar with some of these moving pieces. So it surprises me when people do things like, oh, that's great, that's cool art, and then they need to be aware that art is only for Cypher projects. You can't put it into a D&D project you're doing, right, or, you know, a Call of Cthulhu project you're doing. Read all these guidelines they're giving you. You just don't make assumptions of what you can and cannot do. I remember a guy saying, oh, well, I see some products here don't have that fine print at the bottom of the front page that says, you know, Cypher system book is required. I guess that means I don't have to do it now. And I'm like, no, that means those books are wrong. That's not books that give you permission. But yeah, that's my, you know, one takeaway I want to give people is just don't make assumptions. Read the guidelines that they have out there and understand them, that they are kind of rules of respect. And if you know, you need to give it and you'll get it, you know.
And I've had questions about them and reached out and got answers. For instance, I wrote an adventure and I wanted to write it for another system, but it was a little iffy because I'd written it and now Cypher Creator owned it a little bit too. But I talked to Montica Games and they gave me the all clear to publish it elsewhere. So it's just good to listen to what they have to say, make sure you understand and know the rules. And then if you have questions, just ask them.
That's actually a great question that isn't in our questions that you just brought up, Megan, just for some clarity. If you produce content, right, like a specific adventure, like you mentioned, in the Cypher Creator Program, it can't be reproduced elsewhere, is that correct?
I think it was, I got permission from Bruce. I talked and cleared it up. I think it was just a little iffy looking at the rules for me. And since my husband is a lawyer, we always have to be careful about following the rules.
Yeah, I think at one point it was vague, but I
Yeah.
think, but as a side note, these guidelines change, so you just can't sit and think what you read a year ago still applies. Yeah, I think now they've said, you know, if you haven't, you know, you have more intellectual property right ownership now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of things have been cleared up, and I think that's the biggest free resource that isn't like listed on the Cypher Creator Program, is that you can contact MCG.
Yeah.
And they are very, very good about getting back to you. They're very good about giving you guidance, you know, where you might need it.
And also with Drive Thru RPG, huge shout out to Meredith Gerber, who I've emailed I don't know how many times. You know, she is she's an amazing person there that just helps with all of the publishers there, and is kind of the maven of their Discord server, and you know, it's like, you know, can't say more good things about her. So there are good people that will help you answer all of these questions, you know, in a lot of different places.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a great point, Jonathan. It's not only Monte Cook Games involved in the Cypher Creator. You have the, you know, the entire staff of the Drive Thru RPG team, you know, who are also available. That's actually great.
Yeah.
Any of you guys want to talk about if you used any of the products that Monte Cook Games provides?
Yeah. So, oh, sorry, Megan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I actually haven't used a lot of them other than their logo. We just tried to figure out all on our own because I didn't have InDesign when I first started designing this. And I didn't like doing it in Word, so I was doing it in Publisher. So it was figuring it all out on my own, which is good in some ways, but I think using their templates would have helped a lot for our first steps.
my heart goes out to you, Megan, for using Publisher.
Yeah, I definitely the InDesign template, in part because I, you know, it was, you know, my product was almost a proof of concept, you know, like I'd say, you know, would it be, you know, would it make sense for me to, like, you know, make a shift over, like a big shift over into Cypher, you know, with the stuff that I already had. So using their InDesign formatting for like the like headings and tables. I mean, you know, you want to talk about advice to like new people, you know, use all of that stuff because it is so much harder to figure out how to make it work on your own. If you can, you know, just like copy paste like the table onto a new location and then, you know, write it up that way, it is it really saves time.
Yeah, use what you know would be my thing, because everybody here is talking about InDesign, and I know when I told Chris this, he was mildly horrified. I do all of my layout and writing in Word. I am fluent enough in Word that I can make it look like I went and used something like InDesign. But I'm not yet proficient in InDesign or, you know, any of the other tools. And so use what you know. I don't use a whole lot of the Monte Cook templates and things. I modified my own out, but I did want to make sure I had all the legalese on it. So my credits page uses their layout largely. And I use all the logos.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about it for me as far as what I use.
So real quick question. Oh, go ahead. No, I'll just say real quick question. Just I know we're gonna do audience questions after our main line of questions, but this one's pretty relevant to what we're talking about now from Lord and Lady Mills, or Lord and Lady M. For some reason, I thought there was a license fee. Is that just for Numenera? So all this Cypher Creator Program, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, those free resources are just strictly for Cypher system. I believe if you're doing anything like Numenera, The Strange, any of their specific titles, there is a licensing thing involved. Again, I could be wrong. Y'all can speak on that. But
there are some settings that are available in the Cypher Creator Program, like Predation, Gods of the Fall. That's the whole reason how Ganza got to do some marvelous adventures, in Ganza the Fall because that is available in the Cypher Creator.
I think it's actually easier to say which ones aren't on the table. And I think at the moment, it's The Strange, Numenera.
No, thank you, Evil.
No, thank you, Evil. Obviously not the big one.
Invisible Sun.
Thank you. But as far as it's Cypher system only, and it's just the Cypher system line.
Correct.
And you have to reference which books you're using, which books are required. And as far as a licensing fee, it's actually attached to your pricing. You split the cost with them rather than paying a large upfront fee. And there's certain things you can't publish within Cypher system too. You can't republish the entire rule set.
Right.
You can only plug in and add on smaller bits. You can't do a whole redo of the book without getting a license, which was one of the things that was slowing me down because I was thinking about doing an entire license for Cyberpunk.
I mean, this is actually a perfect lead into my next question. So could everyone here give me one pro and one con of the program? And would you recommend the program to any other, self-publishers? And Andrew, since you were the last talker, then why don't you take this one first?
All right. So pros, I answer to me. I work on my own timetables. I am, in charge of what I'm going to be writing. And, it's all about what Marlowe House is doing rather than whatever third-party client wants from me to write. So that's a huge plus for me. It means that I am really invested in what it is that I'm putting out there. And, it's not that I don't put my heart and soul into what I'm writing, elsewhere, but this really makes it very, very personal. So that's like the big pro. The big con, I would say, and this is one of those things that is true beyond the Cypher System Creator Program. To make a product that looks really nice, and in the market that we're in, I don't think the audience necessarily understands the cost of putting out a product. And so a lot of the things that we put out in the Cypher System Creator Program, I think are actually underpriced for what it costs us in time, resources, and materials. And this is something that a lot of the other publishers I talk to talk about in their other areas. But with us, we have the extra expense of whatever we decide to charge, we're splitting with Drive Thru and Money Cook Games. And so people aren't willing to spend as much money as it would be to recoup what it is that we're putting out there. So it's a much slower build on your return on investment. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just is something that if you're going into this and you're looking to make money at it, keep that in mind, because it's just a reality of what it is. Does it mean that I think it's a bad thing? No, because I am still turning them out and I am still thrilled to be doing it.
Andrew, it's funny you said it because not only do most work on not only all of Drive Thru RPG from self-publishers is underpriced, the consumer complains about the price. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know how many times I'll see someone that have a 25 page supplement and I'll see on various chats, they're charging $10 for that? And
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? It's 20 pages of,
And that's exactly it. We're putting it out, and you have to find that fine line where people are willing to pay and what you need to recoup. And I think we usually end up on the other side of that line. Now, again, it's just something that people need to consider when they're going to get into this.
Anybody else want to give us a pro and a con?
Sure. It's something that I think a little different here. We don't release as much into it, especially the last few years, just because my brain hasn't been great at being creative. So the Cypher Creator System for me is just something that me and my husband write stuff when we feel inspired, and we put stuff up and we get some money back for some investment, but it's just more of a creation we get to do for ourselves. So we're not very dependent on the profit, which is good because we don't get very much. And that's fine. I'm really proud of everything we've put up, and all the money that we do earn just goes back into me buying new RPGs from Drive Thru RPG. They make that really easy. I haven't paid out of pocket on there for a while. So that's really nice. But I think it's really hard to market your stuff on it unless you're super active. And I don't have that sort of super active marketing personality. So you really have to push if you want to a lot of people to get eyes on what you're doing. And then some of them won't be happy with the price, and some of them will look at the cover art and decide it's not worth it. So there's a lot of things that goes in it, and it can be discouraging. But I think it's still a great opportunity to put out something you love and are proud of into the community.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, Megan. I mean, I guess my biggest con with this whole thing is, you said it, it's marketing, the advertisement. You really don't have a real base unless you're doing it, you know? So, and how many people are you going to reach, you know? And 9 times out of 10, you know, it's not so much how many people you're going to reach, but think about it. Most of us who are on social media, whatever, you know, unless we have a massive following, most of the people we're talking to are friends. So, you know, how supportive are most of those people if they're not into the hobby and so on and so forth? So that's a big con as far as I see it, you know, with this whole thing. The pro is that you do get to get published. You do get to get yourself out there. You know, if you're a creative person and you have something to share, it's awesome, you know, and it's awesome when you get the feedback, you know, when somebody tells you it's a great product, you know, even when somebody tells you, hey, I didn't like it, or you know what, you got a ton of typos, you know, guess what? That's still great, because guess what? Now I have to go back, or I have to think about my next project and do better. So it's awesome. Or, you know, like I said, even going back in the project that you're working on or that you've already done, you can go back and do an update, you know, which, you know, I plan on doing. I got some ideas for some fixes for things because of other stuff to come out. So it's literally, you know, 2 sides to the coin. You know, you get it up, put it out there, you know, and like Megan said, you know, we don't make a lot of money, but, you know, it's nice to make enough money to buy that PDF you want, or, you know, well, buy that print on demand book that you want. You know, those things are cool. It's cool to go look at your, you know, look at your account, and, you know, it goes, hey, look, it's another $40, you know, or something, you know, 10 people bought my stuff. So
I'm not gonna lie, these bought me a couple of PDFs with earnings.
Hey, and I mean, and that's the other thing. I will do that. That's cool. That's a cool thing to do. You know what? I mean, I gave Anthony a nice gift certificate one time. You know, that because, you know, it's a gift, you know, to a friend. You needed some stuff, and it's awesome to be able to do that. And you can say, hey, I did that on my earnings. I did this from RPG stuff. You know. So,
and it really is like an expression of like the thing that we love, and you know, putting it out there and giving something that excites us to other people, and you know, and then like, yeah, you get to do that, like, you know, okay, what, you know, end of the month, let me see what I've got. Hey, look at that, you know, and like for me, it's just that, you know, it's not so much the dollars as the numbers, just like, and what I love is looking at something and seeing like 2 things sold, but like, you know, it's like 2 from like almost all of my stuff. Like if I've got like, you know, 15 things, and like somebody bought, you know, 2 people bought like all of this stuff, and I can say, hey, they saw one thing and then they saw the other and the other and the other. And so that, you know, that's a great feeling. And I guess the drawback would be the bite. I mean, they do take a larger cut because you're playing in their sandbox. But then the pro is like all of this stuff. This is like this is game motivated stuff here. So yeah, and my heart goes out to everybody who actually is a professional writer. I got a good friend who is who's writing in their D&D side, a Drive Thru's D&D side, and is making an income, but he works his butt off. So if you've got a day job, this can be a great hobby and like a great way to share the things you love. But if you have a real drive, you can make it happen. If you're willing to work at it like it's a job, and get up in the morning and write all day.
Yeah, that's definitely the rougher aspect I'm finding now that I've quit my job early in the year, or I guess at the start of the year, and I sit down to write, and I'm like, wow, there's people out there who really do this all day. It's kind of crazy.
You do like 5,000 words a day, and you're like, how?
It's definitely wild.
What you're saying, though, Al, to be honest, I wish I could. I honestly do. When, the problem with work for me is like I work 12 hours a day. So my first day off during the week is a recuperation day. I have to get my head right. I have to shift out of, the technical job that I do role. Got to switch my brain. And then I got to, okay, that's a day gone. Then the next day comes in and I've got chores and errands and so on and so forth that you got to do. It's just not enough time in the day. So like we were saying about those projects taking way longer, if I could get up in the morning, if I knew all I do is get up in the morning, brew a pot of coffee and sit down at my keyboard, I'd be a happy camper. I would love it. I took 3 weeks off, and that's when I knocked out the Umber Earth, which was the horror supplement. That was the best time of my life. Me and Chris were corresponding back and forth. I was writing back to him every other day, bam, bam, bam. It was great. I was like loving it. And then work called. Get back here,
Yeah, sadly, I've said if I could do
You're
this
muted,
full-time,
Anthony.
it would be an awesome part-time job.
Yeah.
Yes.
My little pros and cons, by the way. I think that this is a great stepping stone. In addition to that, working Cypher is a smaller market where you may get a better response because the DM's Guild, which is the original creator content, and it's for Dungeons and Dragons, it is now so huge. It's like a traditional market. You make a thing, you put it out there. I have like a 5-star stuff. It's out in the ocean, And the other thing I want to say is, yeah, if you're self-published, you get to keep a good chunk of your stuff. But on the flip side, you're still making 50% off your product, which, be a fiction writer. You make 15%, and then some of that goes to your agent. So I think 50% is not too shabby. And then part of that 50% is you can split that off with, editors and artists. So if you can get somebody to get with you on the percentage, you can develop a little ecosystem. The issue is a lot of people would rather be paid up front. So they were happy for you to take the risk, but they want to be paid up front. So, one of the bigger negatives is, and something I want to kind of jump in again for those people who may go, oh, I already have these ideas. For community content, you cannot do a Kickstarter. That's only for licensed products.
You have to do it. You have to get a license.
I guarantee you at least one person that's been listening to us has been like, oh, well, if I get a Kickstarter and then this, I don't have any layout at all. Yeah.
And I can say that the license for Cypher, having spoken to them, it's probably not as egregious as a 50%, but it is all up front.
Exactly.
And I don't think 50% is bad at all. it's just a cost of doing business, and it really is. It's still a better cut than I get freelancing, a way better cut. So, and I have creative, and I own it, and I have creative control. So it to me, the 50%, that's not an issue.
Like I said, I think the biggest issue we have, I mean, we probably all could make a lot more, money if we had a way to market this stuff to a wider audience.
We should all talk after the podcast.
We should, and I'm definitely down for that, because I'm just saying, if we could do that, you think about it. When Monty Cook does a Kickstarter, they get 5,000, 10,000 people who back the Kickstarter.
But what your guys need is a loudmouth like me.
A little bit of the frustrating part, but I understand, is when you're an original publisher in Drive Thru, you have access to a lot of marketing tools, including email lists and things like that. As community content people, we have access to a couple of things. We can do discount links. We can send complimentary copies. We can create bundles with other awesome creators. But email lists, no, not yet.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if they want to give that or not.
It's just like little things, like when you think about it. I mean, if all of us could sell 1,000 units of our product, of just one of our products, we'd all be sitting there going, yeah. And I don't think that's like too much to ask in a year's time. But going through Drive Thru in the way it is, it's one of those things. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Well, and the frustrating part is, if if you hit the jackpot, you can actually pull that off. I know some DM Guild people who are now freelancers. They make, it's kind of on and off. They can make like a couple of thousand one month and then make nothing. And I had one guy tell me, oh yeah, I wrote a whole adventure, spent weeks in a month making that. It makes pennies. But I wrote in a DM Guild adept product, 200 words. Those 200 words give me like $500 or something ridiculous like that every month, because it's something people keep buying.
Right.
Like Xanathar's notes to everything else, that sort of thing.
Amazing. But you guys already have given us a plethora of great advice with our other questions that we asked. But is there any specific advice not quite mentioned yet that you would give to anyone thinking about starting to self-publish online or via the Cypher Creator Program? Again, I know y'all have given us a plethora of nuggets here, but anything specific not yet mentioned?
Write and do it. I mean, there's nothing more to say than write and do it. You have to do it
every day.
It doesn't have to be perfect when you put it up. You're never going to reach perfection. So just put it out when it's good enough. And if you find a way to improve it later, you can update it, and that update will get sent to everyone who buys it. But if you never put it up, no one's ever going to see it.
I think that's my problem. I have imposter syndrome.
So Stephen King's on writing, he puts in a short story, the first draft of a short story, 1407, which later became a movie with John Cusack to it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why he put that first draft in there in the book is because it sucks. And the lesson is, even for me, first drafts always suck.
And yeah, I think, that's, I was actually going to say that Stephen King on writing, like if you're serious, that I don't think there's a better book to read, to kind of tell you what it's like. And as an English teacher, I would just say, the other best thing you can do is just read. Read as much as you can, as often as.
Yeah, I keep a Google Doc of ideas I have for scenarios that eventually I'll probably write. But I keep track of those ideas when they come up, and then I have them for whenever I sit down to actually do some writing.
Everybody's got one of these. Just keep a document open and just jot it down anytime it comes up.
That's probably the biggest gem right there. Anthony is the king of napkins. You know, no, he really is. Anthony he's the napkin king when it comes to notes. That's what he does.
Pay that.
But in this day and age, like you said, in this day and age, you got Evernote, you've got OneNote, you've got, Scribble or whatever they call. They got all of these different things. Put the ideas down. And I'll give you guys one other nugget that I actually started doing, which worked for me to get me writing. I do an exercise for like 5 minutes a day. I will just write nonstop. Even if I write blah, 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 I might write different words. I even have a page, one place where it goes, I don't know what to write. And I wrote that over and over for 5 minutes. But what happens is when you start doing that, you'll compile stuff. You'll compile and you'll get that. You'll get the garbage out is basically what it is. Writing does not happen sitting, looking out the window, waiting to be inspired by the wind, or that beautiful sunset. Sitting by the window gets you to sit down and go, you know what? Oh, my phone. I haven't played this game in a while. That's what that does. So write, people.
Besides just writing, right? Is there anything else? Do you guys feel it's easier to your first self-publishing job being an adventure, a setting, or just if we're talking about Cypher system, descriptors, or what do you recommend for someone first starting?
So doing what you're comfortable with, whether that be descriptors, classes, types.
Yep.
And then I'll wrap up with my two little notes, which is if you're writing and you feel like you want to look up a rule or something and you're in the zone, don't stop to look up that rule. Just make a little note right there. Look up that rule later and then keep going, because you're going to go through more than one or two drafts. And my other one is for layout design. I'm a fan of minimalism anyway. Make it simple. You don't have to be fancy. Just let yourself edge into that, being fancy with your PDFs.
Yeah. So the other thing I would recommend is keep an eye on what the community is talking about. If you are interested in doing it as a business, keep an eye on what the community is talking about. If they're talking about types, and you're working on, a sci-fi, space opera setting that you've got in the back of your head, maybe you do types for that setting. Tailor the two together as much as you can at the time, because this is all going on YouTube, and eventually anything we say about starting with descriptors or starting with anything specific is going to be outdated. And Chris is absolutely right. Write what you're passionate about, and at the same time kind of keep an eye on what it is the community is looking for and try to bring those two things together.
I think I'd say being involved in a community is really important, whether you're on the Discord or on Facebook or on Reddit, because otherwise you show up and say, hey, check out my product. And everyone there's like, who are you? And obviously you just showed up to sell me stuff. I'm going to ignore you. But if you're part of the community and people know you and you're interacting with people, you have that connection, then people are going to want to get your stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These are all,
I was just going to say that's excellent advice, Megan. And one of the reasons why the five of you are on this show is because when we started Cypher Unlimited, I contacted almost everyone on the Cypher Creator Program. And you wouldn't believe, some people were just like, no, I don't want to be on your show, or which I thought was hilarious, because I'm like, I'm offering you free advertisement, and the five of you were all like, yeah, let's do it,
remember the one guy was like, well, let me check out your stuff because I don't know how big you are. That's literally what that was his response. Yeah, let me check you guys out.
Yeah, which is hilarious because I always view it as, hey, I want to help promote you guys, and you know, we want to do as much. And you know, we slowly, I totally understand it, just from the CU perspective, how we slowly build an audience, you know, and build the server up. It's the same thing for you publishers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a rising tide raises all boats. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we all work together, and yeah, we come on here, we talk about all this. You know, people that are coming to see me, or you know, are just regular CU watchers who don't know Megan or Chris or any of us. You know, we're all bringing our fan bases together, and we're drawing attention to each other. And you know, the idea that you guys might not have been big enough for somebody is kind of hilarious, because even if you were the smallest podcast that had ever been, it's still a new group that you may not have reached before.
And that's why I laughed at it. I was like, okay, well, whatever. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, and it is just funny because, you know, what we're doing, what everybody is doing here, it's all passion. It's what we love.
Yeah.
You know, that comes through in the product. You know, I love everybody's product up here. I have everybody's products. You know, I actually went out and printed Mortal Fantasy. It sits on my shelf back there. You know, so when I run my, listen, Mortal Fantasy, I love that product. It was
It's a great product.
That's what I'm saying. It was an inspiration when I sat down and I wrote Malvando's, you know, Monte Vicum.
Isn't Mortal Fantasy not to like too Chris's? Isn't that the best-selling product on the Cypher Creator Program?
It's consistently in the top 10, if not the top 5.
Yeah.
I also want to.
I was going to say,
Go. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to give a shout out to our Cypher Unlimited moderator and Angel Char, because she also went over. She's a graphic design person, and she gave it a little extra spit and polish. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her for that.
Well, if we're doing that, let's go ahead and hit Rob too, because he went in and he gave my covers spit and polish for Blood and Chrome. And when the next two hit their first milestone, they'll get the new covers.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Rob and Shaw collectively made all our logos.
Look at behind me. Look at that. That's our GM roulette. Anthony's got Cypher. But guys, and that's what I'm saying. You know what? Anthony, thank you for doing this show tonight. You know, for the idea to do this particular show. I mean, I'm 1/3 of the Cypher Unlimited crew, but I tell you, it is nice to be able to look at the community and look at all you great people out here who are creatives like myself, and it's inspiring to all be here together. So I don't know what we're gonna do, but yeah, we're gonna definitely talk after the show. You know, Andrew, and this is great.
Well, we can have that conversation later, D. We'll move on to.
That's great. I'm waiting for you. Come on, hit me.
We'll make this the last question before we open it up to the audience questions. But we talked about what you can create on the Cypher Creator Program, right? Now let's talk about what you can't create. Is there any IPs currently not allowed in the program that you really wish you could mess around in that sandbox? What that's not allowed on the Cypher Creator Program that Monica Games IPs that you wish you could write for?
The Strange. That's really easy for me.
Strange.
The Strange. I would like to do some recursions. I mean, I could, you know, you could do nice little 1, 2, 3 pager things that you could kick out, and you know, cross fingers that, you know,
I would love to,
bulk sales later would help out. But yeah.
Right, because like with the Strange, I would love to like come up with some other organizations, you know, instead of just the estate. You know, like they inspire you. You know, when you look your favorite book, Worlds Numberless, it's so much stuff in there, so much content in there that it just makes you want to write stuff for it. But it's off limits.
Yeah, for me, it would be Numenera.
Same.
Oh, I can't argue with that either.
No, that's good stuff.
Oh, good.
I was gonna say I love the idea of their instant adventures format too, which I don't think is something that we can really mod and use heavily, and that's something else I wouldn't mind being able to play with. I haven't contacted them to ask, but it is something else that would be worth. Now that I'm thinking about it, it'd be worth looking into.
Numenera is all their settings though. When you really think about it, there's not one that they have that isn't inspiring to the point that you want to sit down and write something for it or create something.
I'll be honest. The Strange does not do it for me anymore. Is something I want to write for. Partly because now that we have the Cypher system in general, the things that I wanted to write for in the Strange can be done with the Strange, polished off the surface. I don't need the framework of a recursion to write a mini setting.
Well, no, that's true too. But
that is the thing about the Strange that most excites me. So as a writer, while I might still do something for the Strange, it wouldn't be for the Strange. It might be for the Strange for my house, but it's somebody else's house. It would just be a mini world for their Cypher game.
And that I think is one of the best things about the system is that it's so eminently hackable. When you have literally 1,000 abilities that characters can pick, then there's no limit to what you can create.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like I said, when I said the Strange, it's within the lore of the Strange that I'm interested in. Because and I'm with you the same way though. That the stuff that I would have written for it that I can do now elsewhere, but it's that lore, those lore pieces.
And I get that. For me, the lore, I like the lore they have. There's so much there that I couldn't really add to that. But what I love is the idea of all the world hopping and visiting new places and being able to just drop in a setting and go, boom, here's a thing. And that's what always appealed to me about the Strange was I could get in there and be like, oh, there's this wackadoo idea for a world I have. I don't have to develop the whole thing, just this tiny piece of it. Because that's all that exists.
Right.
And that I can still do.
I must say, I first of all, I knew Megan was going to say Numenera because if any of you guys watch the Amber Clay podcast, absolutely fabulous show, and you should definitely check it out. But I'm surprised no one said Invisible Sun.
Invisible Sun has so much of its own that I don't even really think there's much you could add because they're always adding it. It's just being able to play, maybe just to write adventures in Invisible Sun would be a thing. But Invisible Sun has such wonderful, broad, unlike Numenera, where Numenera is wide open and so there's a whole lot of fodder for you to play with. Invisible Sun's not like that. I mean, there is a lot of stuff for you to play with, but it's also kind of focused.
You see, I would view it differently because I think Numenera's canon is like really important to them, right? Invisible Sun is so broad that I don't think you could F up the canon in any way. Like it's so open that you'll be able to like find yourself a little corner that you could create in and not really mess up anything.
When you start thinking about it though, the basis of Invisible Sun is the Saturnine. It's very dense. There's the Saturnine, there's the actuality, there's the shadow, there's all those different things. There's the secrets. Invisible Sun has such density in its lore, it can almost be intimidating to say, I want to write within it. Whereas Invisible Sun I mean, Invisible, whereas Numenera, like you said, the canon, the lore is great to it, but there's so much just not defined.
There's like 1/4 of the continent that we have content for, and the whole rest of it is up to you. And then whatever's on the other side of the world, because we don't even know.
And the cosmos.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know,
what was it? The 8 worlds before it too.
Right.
Yeah.
And think about it this way. Now that they've like with vertices and voices from the data sphere, I mean, they've just flipped it on its head again, because now you go, guess what? All the Numenera is just a construct. I mean, you can literally do that. So it's so much. It's wider. It's a wider array of openness, even though the content, the lore is important. You know.
I think it's
Go ahead.
nuts to have to release a book, and when you buy the full physical copies of it, and like they say, this comes with a map of the world. I think it takes a lot of guts to have a map of this much information and this much literally white space.
Yes.
With circles, and
it's
that's
beautiful.
I mean, like, I want to talk about an open canvas. I mean, it's a beautiful invitation to just carve out, you don't like what's going on over here? Okay, you can literally go half a planet away and still be on the same landmass. I mean, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And Johnathan,
when an MMO first releases, they'll have a map, and only like 1/20th of the map is filled out. And over the course of its generation, they slowly start building, and building out the map. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever played Elder Scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
How when it first came on, they had 2 or 3 spots. Numenera is very similar to that.
Well, Johnathan and probably Chris and Andrew probably remember, especially with early D&D, it was like that. Forgotten Realms. Most people don't. Forgotten Realms was not Forgotten Realms that you play in today when they first introduced it to us. Mm-hmm. Forgotten Realms was actually a place that you could sneak through from Greyhawk to get to the Forgotten Realms, and it was just this little map. Now it's Faerun, So Numenera gives that feeling. It takes me back to those old days of open.
And I think, if you want to talk about inspiration for fantasy writers, I mean, like, what was Forgotten Realms except a GM's notebook that just never stopped? I mean, it was articles in Dragon magazine for a lot of years before it was even published. So I mean, that's the dream of you're a teenager creating your own world. Like one day that people are going to be playing in my world, and you can do that with with this publishing system. Just like. Mm-hmm. You can put it out a piece at a time, a town here, a region there, and make it work.
And speaking of, you made a big point, because I don't know if any of you ever know it, but if you've ever met Ed Greenwood, cool guy, awesome.
I was gonna say, we letting down into a D&D conversation. This is a perfect lead-in for our first community asked question, because this is I don't want to get into a 5e.
No, I got you.
But Ganza P-A-E-S-T, which is hilarious. Side note, when this person first started joining our stream, we thought it was you, Chris, but it's actually someone else. But we love you too, Ganza P-A-E-S-T. Asks, besides Monty and the crew, what game designers do you look up to?
I love Fate. Fate is one of my favorite game systems to play in that's not Numenera. I like the way it's very flexible, and how you can use your aspects to do what you want with them. I also really like elements of Delta Green. Arc Dream is a really great publishing company, and Pelgrane Press puts out some really great gumshoe stuff as well. That's who I look up to. They're all great people.
I think at the moment it's also worth noting that Arc Dream is largely Dennis Detweiler, who is the writer for Unmasked.
Mm-hmm.
You know what, believe it or not, I look up to a lot of the old school people. Monty's always an inspiration. But you said outside of them, Jeff D. I don't know any of you guys know who Jeff D is. We had Jeff D on the show. He's the creator of Villains and Vigilantes. And he also created, which is Mighty Protectors, which is basically V&V 3.0. I think Jeff D has a very innovative eye in understanding how to make a game crunchier without it becoming overwhelming. I mean, he added more fiddly bits to Villains and Vigilantes. It's still randomized, but it's now, but you now have more control over that randomization, if you will. It's pretty cool to see that you can see modern aspects and narrative aspects being added into a game that was largely mechanical, and largely completely random in what went down. And he has another game called Cave Master, which I think is extremely inspired as well. You literally don't use you don't use dice, you use rocks. Literally, it's because it's based on you're supposed to be a caveman in that era, and it's called Cave Master, and you use rocks for resolution. It's brilliant. So I like innovative stuff. I like stuff like that.
So it's funny this question should come up today too, because earlier today, the social media person for Artel Saurian Games posted this on Facebook. He said, "I just want to say that Owen K.C. Stevens has a body of work in game design that's absolutely breathtaking, and I don't think people realize how much of modern gaming he's influenced." And I had to jump in and say, "Yup, that is 100% true." He is probably my go-to person for, outside of the MCG, but probably even above that, though. He's like my go-to in-industry designer, and he is one of my absolute hands-down favorite people as a human being. We are actually very close friends. He published my first professional credit, and we have become great friends in that time. And he is definitely one of those people that I look to for all sorts of things.
I've got to chime in on Owen as well as just being a great general human being and all the work he's done. Also, the Pelgrane Press crew and KSCM, those are the guys, especially, Greg Stafford and some of the ones that have passed already. And then that will cover most everybody except for Kevin Crawford, who is a guy who does these really great Kickstarter projects that are like 50% GM tools, and then he kind of puts an old school running a game engine on the side, so you can use it as a whole game, or you can just get it for the GM tools. And Stars Without Number, Worlds Without Number are really great things to look at, tear apart, and I was impressed with them.
Awesome.
I wish I knew the person who designed the West End D6 Star Wars game. Pretty much my first introduction into the idea of storytelling gaming, because it was so open-ended, and I still think they're probably the best concept of like the Force in that any role-playing game has done, because it was so loose and imaginative, and like it invited you to invent ways for things to work as long as it made sense within the universe and the the descriptors. Then and I think I don't know, I think Fate might owe a lot to that idea, because I can see a lot of parallels between those mechanics.
I think that guy you're talking about is Bill Slavik.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, a lot of the stuff they wrote became canon. Well, became extended universe canon, which is now legendary canon. And I think at some point, it may have been Bill, it may have been someone else. It was, probably was Bill. He actually did some tie-in fiction later. And they're like, oh, we have a Bible. Oh, okay, well, send me the Bible. The Bible was his books, his game books. True story, not making that up.
And
That's
you
amazing.
know what, guys? We were talking about these great people. I forgot one other person that's very big inspiration. That's Mike Pondsmith. You know,
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you guys know who he is, but you know, you brought up our Tarsorian, you know, and Mike is an inspiration, huge inspiration to me because it is what it is. The guy has done some great stuff
Hall of
across
Famer,
the board.
gaming Hall of Famer.
Yes,
Since like the 80s, I think.
I think anybody that's been kicking around for as long as some of us have, there are more names probably than I could even start rattling off of people. Mike is definitely high on my list.
Yes.
Cyberpunk and the Friday Night Firefight combat system are they were hugely influential on my earlier gaming.
Castle Falkenstein was indie before there was an indie scene.
Yeah.
Castle Falkenstein was the thing, wasn't it?
Fantastic.
We do have one more question from the audience. Before we we are running a little long here. Don't want to keep everybody up all night. But yeah, last question here from Jason Shadowmane, our lovely community member, awesome guy. He says, when writing, do you use a authorial voice or do you write from a more strictly technical reference voice?
That's completely dependent on what I'm writing. I have to be honest. It's completely dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I gotta be. I'm kind of the opposite. You can look at my my MVK stuff with Fate, and it definitely has a voice. I'm an English teacher and also a history teacher, so a lot of timelines, a lot of sort of laying things out. Like I didn't really set out to create a alternate history. But that's what it ended up being. And so, yeah, a lot of it just ends up being sort of like this happened and this happened, this happened, like just, and laying things out like that. So, yeah, I think mine definitely has a very sort of narrative voice, strong narrative voice. And then, some like, sections of like, big, lovely, chunky bits.
I'm not even sure because my education is in the sciences and we never learned anything about writing except how to do it very technically. But I think I aim towards a more conversational tone and I sort of ape the way adventures I read are written when I write an adventure or how flavors are written in the ciphertext. I try to follow that same tone as best as I can. Mostly the way I think is a lot of how it ends up on the page, though.
I'll probably, if I look at my writing, I'll prove myself wrong, but I do try to aim for being technical when it's appropriate and being more conversational when it's closer to fluff and information. So you're building a reference document to some degree, so you need a little technical writing in there.
It does that. It changes. One of my favorite pieces I did changes a lot. When I was working with Rogue Genius Games on the Relic Files series, I did one for a product called Manicore Power Armor, and I really kind of overcrafted it. It ended up being one of my favorite pieces of writing because so much of it is written. There's a bit of fiction. There's a bit of review of the Manicore armor from a in-universe website. And they like break it down and talk about the pros and the cons and things like that. But then there's the technical parts at the end. And I usually try to, as Megan pointed out, ape the tone of the material I'm using. So when I'm writing for Pathfinder, I write with a different voice than I do for Cypher. They have different structures. Cypher is a little bit more conversational. It's still technical. It's a little bit more conversational than Pathfinder, which is so rules oriented that when you're doing the technical writing over here, there is a ton of formatting that you have to abide with. And, there are all these pieces that are very technical and, spells get italicized and this thing gets bolded and these things are capitalized. That's all, very technical on that end. But when I'm writing Cypher, it can be a lot more conversational while still maintaining that air of sort of authority and, rules. So I try to keep it as close to what you read in a Monty cookbook as possible.
Agreed.
Unless there's any more questions in the audience, I think from a personal standpoint, this was extremely educational. I want to thank every single one of you. And you guys all know you have an open invitation to come on the show whenever you like and want to promote whatever wonderful projects you guys are working on. If we have no other, we're probably going to start winding this down. We're close to 2 hours on the show, and it didn't feel like it. That's the whole reason why we brought you guys on. You guys are fantastic designers and great communicators. I learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did as well. So thank you for coming on. And please support these guys. Go to Drive Thru RPG and look at their products and give it a shot. And where can everyone be reached on social media? We'll go first with Megan. Do you have any links or anything you want to promote?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Curium247, CURIUM 247. It's on private right now because I'm job hunting, but if you follow me, I'll follow you back. You can read what I'm writing. I have, as you can sort of see in the background, a Numenera actual play podcast called The Amber Clave. We've wrapped up our 3rd season recently, and we got an actual producer for it. So our 3rd season has sound effects, which is really cool for us. But we're working on recording the 4th one now, and hopefully that will be out soon. I also have the redacted files, and then on Drive Thru RPG, you should look for Fantasy Ancestries, and then an adventure I wrote that I'm pretty proud of. It's a modern sort of mystery called What Lives Must Feed, where I really just went crazy with science and plants, my 2 favorite things to make go evil in adventures.
Nice.
Evil plants, love it.
Definitely check out the Amber Clave. That's actually one of the first podcasts, Numenera podcasts I found when I was looking for it, and it's fantastic. And Megan, tell Asa we say hello. We love you guys. So
yeah,
opportunity to come on the show. How about Andrew? Where can you be found on the interwebs? And do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Sure. I'm easily found on Facebook. Andrew Marlowe, not the one who produces Castle. So you can find me on Facebook, Andrew Marlowe. We have a Twitter. I am terrible at tweeting, so it's not really terribly useful. You can follow Marlowe House on Facebook. That's a little bit better. And then if you do Marlowe House games on Drive Thru, that'll pull up pretty much everything that I do because I list our publishing name as a co-author on every product. But if you search my name on Drive Thru, you'll also find a bunch of third-party Pathfinder stuff, including things from a lot of big companies, Green Ronin, Rogue Genius. So by all means, go check out the backlog as well.
And Andrew, you and Monica, your favorite people in the world. And I've been on Marlowe House several times. I was actually when you had your actual play for your Wild West.
Mhm.
I was actually I got privileged to be a key player in that story.
That is a project that is still slow burn. So you will there's more to that to come.
Well, it was a fantastic setting, and I can't wait to see more of it.
So yeah, we're on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can go back and watch this on YouTube under Marlowe House.
Nice.
Jonathan, where are you on the interwebs, and where can do you have any links or anything you want to promote?
You can go to mechaversuskaiju.com and get links to everything we do there on Facebook, Mecha vs. Kaiju, and Mecha v Kaiju on Twitter. Just fair warning, there's a bunch of lefty liberal social justice stuff on that as well. So, fair warning. And then on Drive Thru RPG, Wright Werx, it's Werx. And then, of course, you can just do a search for Mecha vs. Kaiju Cypher, and you'll find the rules supplement there.
And we haven't forgotten you have promised us last time that you was gonna run us a mecha game on stream, and we're still waiting.
And if I can get a crew like this is like the team for for gaming. So let's do this.
I'm definitely down for mechs.
Yeah, hey, you just say the day. Just say word. Say it.
Dean, where you could be found.
I'm Alpha Dean everywhere. Alpha Dean everywhere. That's all you got to look up. I'm there. You'll find my stuff. As far as Drive Thru RPG is concerned, just Infinite Inner Horizons is the name that I go under for a lot of stuff as well, and you'll find that connected to all my products that are out there. It's easy.
And we saved the cult of Ganza for last.
How much time?
Go to your usual conversion center, you'll be fine.
Chris is so big, he literally has his own cult on our server. Where they got secret hand signals and everything. Chris, how can you how can you be reached on the webs, and do you have anything you want to promote?
Okay, so probably the thing that I update the most is my Patreon, where I go by Ganza Gaming, Ganza Gaming. I also have Twitter, but that's a little more complicated. Chris R is not the hard part, it's last name, Chris R. Negelein, Negelein. I also have a blog I don't keep up with as much as I should, thebrightcave.com. I've got a Ko-Fi /Ganza Gaming. Facebook, you can meet me as Christopher Robin Negelein. Again, Negelein. I guess some of the things I can promote is right now working with 2 different Kickstarters. There's the Diamond Throne by the Italian publisher Here Be Dragons, where we convert Mighty Cook's Diamond Throne D20 setting to Cypher. We both started as stretch goals to do adventures, and then they asked us to come back and do a few more things in the main book, and it looks great. We're just chopping the bit for them to pull the trigger on it. And the other Kickstarter is Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. You remember Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this, you can do that again in 5e. Oh, or you can use Esper Genesis, the sci-fi game, to be the crew that comes down to investigate the beacon, or mix and match both from levels 1 to 20. I've already got some things cooking.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty hot. I'm pretty excited.
Right now, I'm also working on my next little community content project. It's called Changing Seasons #2. It'll be in Cypher and Fantasy Age. As a side note, by the way, for community content people, if you're into InDesign, you should at least check out the template for Fantasy and Modern Age, because that will teach you. It's a masterclass. You'll be like, once you figure out how to work that template, you will learn so much. And then
Also a great system.
and then it's later this year, I don't know when, I'm gonna do like little 5-10 minute pieces for a series called My Players Won't Watch This, as my passive aggressive answer to them never watching anything like this I do or go to panels that are literally next door. Yeah, Andrew's laughing for a reason because I know he's, you know, it seems like it's like when your players are your judgy friends when you're the garage band. They're like, oh yeah, I went to school with him. How can he be cool? And then you go one state over and, you know, they roll out the red carpet for you, so to speak. So I'm sure we're going to put this in the doodly-doo somewhere later, because I know that was a lot of information, and my apologies.
We absolutely will have it. And once again, before I'll let Dean sign us off today, but I just want to say personally and on behalf of the CU, thank you so much for coming on. We truly appreciate all of you. And I hope our audience has learned as much as I have individually, and I'm pretty sure they do. So once again, on behalf of the CU, thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
I learned a bit tonight too. So, you know, and, you know, even as a guest.
And if you like us and you like what we do, be sure to join our Discord. We have the largest fan-run MCG Discord with games being run at all times. And when we say all times, we mean all times. Not a fan of Discord? Join our Facebook group. Not as big, but still plenty of discussions to be had. We're growing, so join Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you ever miss our Twitch shows, we'll always upload it to YouTube afterward. We're trying our best to get to 1,000 subscribers there, as well as we're headed for 4,000 subscribers on Discord. And we'd appreciate it so much. If that's not your thing and you decide you just want to help us in other ways, you can give us a little donation on Ko-fi. Our videos will always be free, but Ko-fi donations help us out with little things like our Zoom calls. Buy some merch, you know, from our merch store. Look at what Anthony's wearing. You can see the shirt that Chris has on. That's our vintage shirt, actually, but it's still, you know, out there.
We Chris a new one.
You know, we have hats, notebooks, mugs. We got the works. And capes are going to happen. We're going to somehow make these capes happen. So show your love for the CU and support us, you know, at the same time. And with all that being said, I'm going to close us out with, we love you guys.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
I'll close out. I just wanted, we spoke about this last week, whether we hit 1,000 members on YouTube or 4,000 on the Discord, we're doing an absolutely fantastic giveaway. So please join the Discord or go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. We're going to have, I'm going to talk to these people after the show, but we'll definitely have content from all these guys for the giveaway because they gave us last time as well. But we're going to have content from you, Monty Cook Games. We have some dice companies. We'll have over $3,000 worth of stuff to give away from, you know, various MCG products. So please go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. We want to get this giveaway going as fast as possible.
Yep, most definitely. So if you haven't done that already, we would very, very much appreciate it if you did. And if you already have, tell your friends. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been a blast as usual. We really appreciate y'all coming on, talking to us about the Cypher Creator Program. I know that a lot of our members or community members have been curious about the program, and when we mentioned we were doing this, a lot of people were excited. So, yeah, hopefully y'all learned some interesting tidbits and advice. I definitely did. And before I sign us off, I will say about the capes, they are getting closer and closer to becoming a reality. My husband does work at a, a screen printing shop, and all I would have to do is find a cotton cape, and I'm already on the path to do that. And he says printing on those should be no problem. So yeah, keep an eye out for capes.
We're going to have a cape night. When we get our capes, we're all going to wear our capes. All of us.
But yeah.
Context, we'll tell you offline exactly what's going on with the capes, but
yeah, thank you guys so much again.
We're crazy.
And from us at the CU, we will see you later.